Here's the scary truth. When the government shuts down, your money can shut down too. Loans denied, credit frozen, refunds delayed. But I'm going to show you how to flip that and turn that into a financial advantage in this video. Let's dive straight in. So the government shut down, whether we're experiencing or it's a threat coming now, or it's something that they mention in the future as they normally do, then this is everything you need to know. So it's important for you to be aware of it today. So that way, when they bring it up, you're in position. And that way you can carry out life knowing that the government could possibly shut down. So government shutdown Q&A, everything that you should know. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I'm going to highlight the main points so you can be equipped with the knowledge, and then I'm going to provide you with some solutions so you could be in position for you and your family. So here are some of the talking points that I cover. What is a government shutdown? Because a lot of people don't know this. They hear government shutdown and they really just assume, or they just really don't, have a thorough understanding. So we'll break that down. What services are affected in a shutdown, and how is the government preparing for a shutdown? How will federal employees be affected? How and why do mandatory programs continue during a shutdown? How many times has the government shut down? Does a government shutdown save money? How can Congress avoid shutdown? What is a continuing resolution? How often does Congress pass CRs? What are the disadvantages of using CRs? How is Congress addressing funding? How does shutdown differ from default? And how does shutdown differ from sequestration and sequester? And then some other info, and plus how to address this for yourself. Now, what is the government shutdown? Many federal government agencies and programs rely on annual funding appropriations passed by Congress. Every year, Congress must pass and the president must sign budget legislation for the next fiscal year, consisting of 12 appropriation bills, one for each appropriation subcommittee. Congress has not yet enacted any of the 12 bills for FY 2026 that make up the discretionary spending budget. Without those bills or a continuing resolution, the federal government must shut down. In a shutdown, the federal agencies must discontinue all non-essential discretionary functions until new funding legislation is passed and signed into law. Essential services continue to function, as do mandatory spending programs. So what they consider to be non-essential is going to be key. What services are affected in the shutdown and how? So each federal agency develops its own shutdown plan following guidance released in previous shutdowns and coordinated by the Office of Management and Budget. The plan identifies which government activities may not continue until appropriations are restored, requiring furloughs and the halting of many agency activities. Essential services, many of which are related to public safety, continue to operate, with payments covering any obligations incurred only when appropriations are enacted. In prior shutdowns, border protection and hospital, medical care, air traffic control, law enforcement, power grid maintenance have been among the services classified as essential. Keep listening. While some legislative and judicial staff have also been largely protected, mandatory spending that is not subject to annual appropriations, such as for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, also continues. Other examples of activities that continue are those funded by permanent user fees that are not subject to appropriations, such as immigration services funded by visa fees. Certain programs that are funded through advanced appropriations, such as those with the Veterans Health Administration, have been minimally affected during recent shutdown. Although many programs are exempt, the public is still likely to feel the impact of a shutdown in several ways. And this is where you have to really get close and listen in, because you got to see what applies to you, what doesn't, and still be in position for success. So, for example, in a shutdown, Social Security and Medicare, checks are sent out, but benefit verification as well as card issuance would cease. While unlikely to happen again during 1995 and 96 shutdown, more than 10,000 Medicare applicants were temporarily turned away every day of the shutdown. So if they're ever talking about shutdowns, then if that's something that you have on your to-do list that you need to get done for you or someone else, then it's important to take care of that beforehand. Environmental and food inspections. So during the 2013 shutdown, the EPA halted inspections for 1,200 sites that included hazardous waste, drinking water, chemical facilities. FDA delayed almost 900 inspections during the 2018-2019 shutdown. The FDA restored some food inspections a few weeks into the funding lapse for products that were considered high risk. National parks, we ain't gonna talk about that. Air travel If you travel, then you understand that, it could be some temporary things that take place with that. Health and Human Services, the IRS. In the event of a shutdown, the IRS, which verifies income and Social Security members, would not be able to perform their services. And this is where the refund delays can kick in. The SNAP program, for those who have SNAP. This right here, if this shuts down, what this does is put people in a bind, and many people end up using their credit cards more. And when people use their credit cards more, then their utilization goes up. And when utilization goes up, credit scores go down. So that's very important to know. This can cause a trickle down on your credit. Now, one of the solutions I want you to consider is understanding that when government shutdowns happen, it can cause a trickle down in many people's finances and many people's credit. As a result of that, everybody needs to have some type of financial literacy, some type of understanding of how finances work, certain ways that they can increase their cash flow, other streams of income that they can produce, or solutions that they can provide. If you want to be a part of my private community where I give you solutions on how you can not only better your own credit, but position yourself to make money in the credit industry, I highly recommend you tap into the link below. But if you also want to take it to the next level and get yourself in a position to have some $1,000 days by helping people better their credit, then that link will be available below. You can book a call. And if I feel you're a good fit, by good fit, I mean you must have integrity. You got to have integrity with what I'm referring to in terms of you having $1,000 days and helping people. If you do not have integrity, do not apply for that particular call. But you can get access to our community and learn some things to better your credit, position yourself to start making money, and then we'll go from there. But these SNAP programs being canceled can trickle down into other areas. So is the government preparing for a shutdown? Agency issues contingent plans to outline the process of entering into an existence during a shutdown. So basically, they're preparing for one. But as of today, we're having an ultimatum. I don't think there will be one. But I still know that people don't know what a shutdown consists of and how they need to be positioning themselves, both from a preparation, if it does, how you can offset the negative effects that can come from it, but also how you can position yourself as a solution provider in the event that it does. So how would federal employees be affected? If you're a federal employee, then you probably know what can happen, but let's go over it briefly. A full shutdown would be more extensive than a partial shutdown that started 2018, December, when Congress had enacted 5 of the 12 appropriation bills. A full shutdown would likely be similar to recent ones in 2013, 2018, when approximately 850,000 out of 2.1 million non-postal federal employees were furloughed. So that hurt a lot of people. And then in 2013, most of the 350,000 civilian employees of the Defense Department who had been furloughed were summoned back to work within a week. Furloughed employees are not allowed to work and do not receive paychecks, but are guaranteed back pay due to legislation passed in 2019. Had it not been for that back pay, then that would have been a big hit. So I'm sure they can appreciate that. But, them not being paid during that time frame, depending on how long it lasts, can be detrimental. At the beginning of the partial 2018 and 2019, it was estimated that 380,000 employees were furloughed. So jobs can be lost or temporarily, cut, and pay can be lost for a temporary time frame, which means that also during the time frame while they wait, they could also be running up their utilization, dropping their credit score as well. So how and why do mandatory programs continue during a shutdown? So whereas discretionary spending must be appropriated every year, mandatory spending is authorized either for multi-year periods or permanently. So mandatory spending generally continues during the shutdown. So we talked about the mandatory spending and things that they consider to be essential. How many times has the government shut down? Well, there have been 20 funding gaps. So we'll just leave it at that. And it's broken down into different years. Does a government shutdown save money? This is what many people want to know. While estimates vary widely, evidence suggests that shutdowns tend to cost, not save, money for several reasons. For one, putting contingency plans in place has a real cost. Absolutely. In addition, many user fees and other changes or charges are not collected during the shutdown. So when they shut down, there's certain money that they're not bringing in. Plus, they have to put money to the side for having some type of plan, contingency plan. So, that's minimizing their cash flow. And federal contractors sometimes include premiums in their bids to account for uncertainty of being paid. So now they're paying more for things. While many federal employees are forced to be idle during the shutdown, they have historically received and are now guaranteed back pay, negating much of those potential savings. So shutdowns also carry a cost to the economy. That's important to know as well. So it might not necessarily save money because of the extra costs associated with it due to all of the things that are listed in that paragraph. So how can Congress avoid a shutdown? So there are essentially two ways to avoid a government shutdown. Number one, by passing appropriations or a continuing resolution. So when you see what the continuing resolution is, it'll kind of elaborate on that more. But theoretically, the House, the Senate appropriation committees are supposed to pass 12 different appropriation bills that are broken up into subcommittees by subject area and based on funding levels allocated in a budget resolution. So these things can position them to avoid a shutdown. To avoid a shutdown, Congress would need to pass 12 appropriation bills through both chambers and get them signed by the president by the end of today at the time of this recording. But keep in mind, this right here is what you need to understand in general. I don't care if it's 2030 when you're watching this video. You need to understand these things in general, and hopefully by the end you position yourself to have some options and some ways that you can be of assistance in helping people by tapping that link below where I can get you in the community, help you better your credit, or help you just further your education. Or you may be even a contributor to the group to the point where you understand credit and you're able to help people, but also you get compensated for it as well. And then again, if you want to have some $1,000 days, book a call so we can position you to help people take their credit to the next level. Integrity is required. Do not apply if you're not a person of integrity. Simply put. So what is continued resolution? We'll just leave that at that. How often does Congress pass continued resolutions? So Congress frequently passes continued resolutions or continuing resolutions when lawmakers are unable to agree on appropriations before a deadline. Occasionally, multiples, those resolutions are necessary to fund the government for an entire fiscal year. So they pass those every now and then and kind of offsets things. But what are the disadvantages of continuing resolutions? Well, they have several negative implications for the budget's overall efficiencies. CRs usually continue funding at the past year's level without any regard for changing policies, needs, or the value of each program within an agency. Using a CR wastes hundreds of hours of careful consideration and program evaluation incorporated in each agency's budget submission. For instance, the president's annual budget proposes a list of eliminations and reductions of programs that are duplicative or ineffective, and the CR will continue to fund those unwanted programs. Finally, the use of CRs disrupts activities within agencies, making it difficult to plan or start future projects and cost staff time to revise work plans every time the budget changes. So it's always pros and cons to certain things when it comes to anything in life, but especially with a government shutdown or prepping for it. So how is the Congress addressing funding? We'll skip that because I want to get to a couple of other things before we wrap this up. But more importantly, what I want you to understand is this has a trickle-down effect, whether for you, for your family, and understanding how to navigate is going to be key, but also positioning yourself for solutions. And that's why it's important for you to know that certain things may not have a direct effect, but the trickle down causes an effect that can affect you and or your loved one. So you just have to be a person who's able to see from a higher level, knowing what it is, what the options are, so you can position yourself and your family in order to make sure that when things happen, you're the person that they can lean on. You're the person that they can look to. You're the person who has some understanding of what's going on. And when you have an understanding of what's going on, that builds confidence and trust in you as the leader of your household, whether male or female. Now you're knowing, okay, this is what's likely to happen. This is how we can be in position. Because usually during times of crisis, there are opportunities. But it's up to you to recognize the opportunity so you can seize the opportunity and be a solution provider.